What's going on, Fortnite fam? Zeke here, and today BallaTW and Shyowager are going to break down the 20 elimination victory royale from Bucky, Animal, and Aspect. Let's see what led them to the win.
Hey Fortnite fam, BallaTW here, and we're going to do another VoD review. I am joined by the lovely Shyo. Shyo, what's up, man?
Hey guys, how's it going? Shyowager here. As Balla said, with Balla, we're here to do that awesome VoD review on Animal, Bucky, and Aspect, and one of their big elim wins in that Trio Cup Week 2 for the Fortnite Champion Series.
Yeah, these guys played amazing, but this is one of the reasons why they played so well and placed so highly and qualified for the Fortnite Champion Series, because they had a 20 elim victory royale towards the end of the tournament. And we'll see how they actually managed to do it. And already starting off with an interesting drop too at Snobby. And then I think that's Bucky up in the top. Yeah, he's landing at the villain there.
Yeah, this is a very interesting split. These guys know from coming in from the actual bus path that no one's actually with them. Lets you get a little bit more flexible and have a little bit more flexibility on what mats you can get and the actual loot you can get from the drop and the surrounding atmosphere and other loot paths that are close by. Very smart early game split off to start the game off.
Yeah, and this is something that we've been seeing a lot more in trios, is players being comfortable with the split. But I don't think, well, at least I haven't really watched a team go for a 2-1 split, even when they're getting contested. You could already see, if we hop back over, if you look at the mini-map, there's 3 players. There's a full trio here in Snobby with them, so it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that. I think already the idea I'm seeing is they have an easy flank from Bucky. They have a pre-fight setup that Bucky's going to be able to flank on them.
Yeah, it's the whole kind of eyes in the sky experience. No matter what happens in the fight, even if they do get engaged on, there's always going to be a spot that the enemy players are fighting are going to have to be looking forward and kind of paying close attention to. And they aren't going to be able to deal with it immediately. There's always going to be a threat on the map and an advantage that Animal, Bucky, and Aspect have before the fight even starts.
I already like the team above them is pushing through, an Aspect and Animal backing up, making themselves a little house down here. Starting to force them into a box fight, but also delaying, because now Bucky comes from behind and he's on top of them, and immediately Aspect pounces with the shockwave grenade, gets into the box on the other side. They have a full pinch, and 2 Chance is going to be out of the fight immediately.
They have a nice 3-point pinch that was set up in such quick fashion. Vertical pressure this early in the match with minimal mats is something that's very, very hard to deal with. Bucky coming in with that big surprise factor. 2 walls being taken over. A trio that should have been 3 players is now 0. It's an easy cleanup for the star trio in the beginning of the game.
Now they have time to work with, because that fight was so fast. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, is how long these early game fights take, especially with the box fight meta, which is where people are turtling, like you saw Animal and Aspect at the beginning of this fight. As that meta is in play, it really makes it drag out the fight. So you have to spend your time wisely depending on when the storm is going to come, to be able to, balance your loot versus being able to get a good position and not have to run with the zone.
Absolutely. When you're especially on the same level playing fields in verticality, it's very hard to keep track or get any type of shot off. We've mentioned that the split looked kind of weird, especially since there was a type of contestation on this drop spot, but a quick just adaptation. It looks well practiced. It looks very methodical. It's an easy way to kind of exploit any type of vertical push an enemy might do. And it just lets one Overlord player, in this case Bucky, keep track of everything and easily give you that big access unlock pass early game to have an easy game and an easy start off to have a nice foundation for the rest of the match.
Another thing too is how well they conditioned their opponents, right? Because they didn't know Bucky was anywhere near them. Well, they could have, right? During the drop, they could have spotted that there was a player who went villain, but they actually have no clue that it's going to be the team that's in Snobby with them, who's splitting like that. But with that said, Animal and Aspect, the way that they did, Turtle, the way that they did try to indicate they want to be part of this box fight, really conditioned the opponents to start playing a little bit more cautious, playing a little bit more careful, to try to set up their own pinch. But because it's not as practiced and kind of forced on Animal and Aspect's terms, they're able to do what they did.
You have trio games, or trio cups actually do take 10 matches into account over a 3-hour period, week to week, over 5 weeks. They could have actually conditioned these opponents actually landing contested over and over and over again and then busting out the big strat at any moment. We'd have to go back in other VoDs to see if this was a surprise strat, but it was executed perfectly. And now they get to rotate around free of stress, free of any type of threat whatsoever. As you can see, getting max mats up on one of the POIs that usually take the longest to loot, the longest to get organized with because of contention. Just defying all odds here and just having a perfect early game.
Yep. So, like we said, this is one of their biggest games of the tournament of that Sunday night. And guys, if you do want to go see the rest of their games, you can do that just by going into the Compete tab in-game, searching up Trios Week 2 or any of the weekends that you're watching this, and find your favorite player. You can just hop in and watch how they play it. We're going to learn a lot from Aspect, Animal, and Bucky over the next 25 minutes throughout this game. As their rotations start, they have a little ways to go. I'm going to open up the map just to see where they need to go. It looks like towards Loot Lake, up towards the north center of the map. So without the quad crashers and Snobby anymore, they have to go on foot.
Yep, any damage they do take, I've seen Bucky do this in multiple different games, carrying those white heals, especially bandages, usually over met kits just in case when he's going around early to late game. Stinks, big power weapons such as Splows that leave you getting chipped past your shield, don't actually have as much an effect afterwards once you actually do heal up because of those bandages. It's just a nice or a big risk actually to carry them in case nothing actually ever goes wrong. But insurance is kind of something these guys always want to keep ahead of and keep tabs of when they're moving around in their loadouts and on their movement. Very smart loadout choice here. Not much spam available, just precision and any items available in his loadout to fix any mistakes that kind of arise on rotation.
And kind of the same story on everybody else. I'm just swapping through. Yeah, only one real spam weapon in the legendary AR on Aspect, whereas Bucky and Animal just have infantry rifles in combats. Bucky's going to be able to take some shots up ahead. And I again, they're playing with this idea that you don't always have to be tightly packed together. They started out in the early game somewhat close when they're rotating out of Snobby, but then quickly Bucky goes ahead and takes point up towards the zone, while Animal and Aspect spend a little bit more time, a little extra time to get a couple more chests on the outskirts before moving in. But Bucky now has kind of reserved the space to move in here.
Yep, they get a free care package as well. A lot of the information available on the west side of the map comes up from your drop. It seemed like they did have a bus that kind of went through the middle of the map. They got to see exactly where people dropped in Haunted and Junk. Having control of this entire west side, knowing who drops here, it's not really a place you really rotate into for any type of extra mats or any type of extra materials or looting. Whoever kind of drops here in the beginning is who kind of stays on this side of the map. So just knowing that you have it free, knowing you have that free split in the beginning, and now knowing you can cover even more ground is huge for these guys, as all they really have to do is farm up any extra mats, Bucky finally topping off on metal, and get any extra residual loot that comes around, like that care package.
Funny you mentioned the topping off of mats, off of just a shed, a little shack on the side of the map. They top off a metal. Aspect gets a little bit as well, not before starting to move in. They do have that Storm Scout sniper on their loadout, which was recently vaulted, but this is going to be one of the reasons they help themselves to zone in the next couple of tries, in the next couple of circles, I should say. Now, through Pleasant, we'll see. What is the goals right now, though, Shy? Especially considering they have the Storm Scout, considering they just topped off on materials, what are their goals moving into these next couple of zones?
So with the Storm Scout, especially with the type of setup they have present, we have infantry rifles. We don't have that much spam. It's more about cold, calculated, taking good risks, making sure it pays off. It's all about not getting too psyched out about the next zone. Yes, you know exactly where it is, but at the same time, everyone else on the map, or the majority of players, are going to be playing for the zone that's currently on your screen. So if you do psych yourself out, if you kind of push for a bad position knowing that it's good, you could end up griefing yourself, especially with the loadout they have. It might not be the best box fight type of loadout or grief relief type of loadout. So just playing exactly where they are first and then knowing where to rotate afterwards, staying cool, calm, and collected on the information you have, having a good poker face against the rest of the lobby is kind of the key at the moment for this trio.
Yeah, I think they're doing exactly that. They're basically on the edge of the next zone going forward here. I do just want to point out that really cool technique as they're getting shot from the hill. That team that kind of took the spot they wanted with the driftboard, so they actually back up into Pleasant. No teams nearby. But what Aspect did as that team shot down was, instead of doing the normal thing where he just runs with Rawls, he actually puts a rotated ramp up above. I don't know if you see that, Shio, on the outside of this, where he creates so much space to work with. Some players like to put cones or a ramp and a cone or whatever, but in this case with that rotated ramp, I'm gonna see if I can get another angle here to go back and watch that. But it's such a nice little technique that I've never really seen.
Yep, that tidbit as well, it blocks so much pressure and kind of shows teams, okay, these guys kind of know exactly what they're doing. It kind of opens up the rest of Pleasant right now for these guys to just come and residual farm if they want to get their brick up, if they want to get their wood or metal up. There's no issues at all. The server kind of knows, okay, these people are serious. It's not a random trio that's coming in. The big thing with the kind of dynamic with this trio as well, Bucky joining up with one of the best star duos of the region. You'll see a lot of 2-1 splits as we start going forward and on rotation. There is a lot of trust available, as everyone knows that each player is competent on their own, and there are a lot of dynamics that they can easily split off, knowing who works better in terms of chemistry. It's little tidbits like that is what you kind of have the room to think of when you're so ahead of the competition by default, and then implement on these rotations when you're playing trios against the best of the best.
I like that you mentioned the fact that Bucky is joining Aspect and Animal. It was Booga right before FCS, but then quickly changed as the roster mania started. And I think this is a really, really strong pickup for both the entities, right? Bucky joining two players who he knows have such a good mindset for competitive Fortnite. And then, of course, Aspect and Animal finding Bucky as well. Bucky, one of the players who qualified in World Cup of Solos. I think it's a really good pairing, and I think this is going to show why. They've been performing really every single week. They didn't quite qualify in week number 1, but it was only a matter of time.
If the placement was so close in week 1, 100%, as long as you have someone in Bucky's ear letting him know, this is exactly what you got going for you in the beginning. You trust him off being a solo player, kind of adapting to exactly the target you're making out for him. That's where he can easily just pop off, get as much he can get as he can get done throughout the whole server. One other big thing, Balla, about this trio is just the ingenuity they kind of have and the calmness they kind of have on comms. If you've ever seen it, it's just amazing. They have everything kind of, it just seems like they've practiced every single scenario, and there's never really an argument about what to do next, which is very hard to find with trios these days.
Oh, funny enough, they wanted this hill at first, but they're actually going to be rewarded because of what you said earlier, right? If you have that Storm Scout sniper, you have more information than the rest of the server. The team that hopped themselves up on this mountain probably didn't have a Storm Scout sniper, and they actually left the position that Animal, Bucky, and Aspect know to be a good one. And they didn't just go for it. They spotted the base and thought, hey, that might be empty. But they still threw one grenade just to see how they would react if they were in the box, and then they took it. All while being safe, not taking really any damage throughout this entire mid-game so far. Only one tag on Animal, really. And that's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to spend your precious heals, your precious resources to go through what they did spend all the way back in Pleasant against the team that was in this very position was just replenished by farming the Pleasant cars, by farming the inside of that basement house down back below, and even going all the way to gas station farming some more brick.
Yep, and the more and more they farmed, the more and more they replenished. It was always on the edge zone, as you said. It makes you stay more low-key. You're trying to play to the fact that you're not trying to give away your cards to the rest of the server. Coming up very late for this mountain as well, surprisingly not taken, as you said as well. Just not showing your cards yet with this loadout is huge. Being a surprise factor for anyone rotating, like these hoverboards getting tagged up by Animal on the low ground, or any people flying later on high ground. It's dope to keep a low profile first, then pop off with some of the strongest weapons in the server against unknowing enemies within the air.
Edge zone 2 has become stronger and stronger throughout the competitive Fortnite history. Really, at the beginning of competitive Fortnite, it was probably the weakest spot to be at because players didn't really value center zone as much as they do now. You're going to find all the majority of the congestion and congestion be center zone for the majority of the time, except for these players who have the Storm Scout. But on the flip side, players are starting to realize that and start to take the positions that Animal, Bucky, and Aspect have right now. Of course, they have the Storm Scout. They can edge their way in as much as they want. They did see half in, half out, and I think this is one of the most interesting parts of rotating with the Storm Scout is when players see the half in, half out, how they rotate there.
Yeah, this is full comms and trust as well. It's all on Animal to kind of lead them to see exactly where they need to go. It seems like half and half out is going to be between the bottom side of the map. At the same time, Animal both knows that there should be other Storm Scouts in the game as well. You talked about center circle and how important it is. On this map right now, you see a lot of people on the edges, on mountains. That's because we are in that loot lake or loot lake rift zone, which a lot of teams don't want to be in because of that low gravity. Jumping being something everyone does very, very naturally when they are under threat or pressure. It's very hard to kind of adjust that on the fly and get good peaks, but knowing exactly where zone is, chilling out on the edge first and getting in like this trio just did, and then staying low-key after that is a perfect recipe for disaster for the rest of the server coming in and anyone who gets caught in that loot lake rift zone.
And then grabbing high ground with it. Not something you normally see from this trio. Or at least as history tells us, they tend to be a mid-ground favored team, especially if they want to go high ground, they go much later than this. Obviously, with the infantry rifles that Bucky and Animal have, they're going to have a lot of free shots up above.
Absolutely. For now, it also looks like their win conditions kind of coming into play. The later the game goes on, the more deadly these loadouts become. The more accurate they can be in congested areas. So Balla is just a matter of time before these guys become activated and online for the rest of the server.
It's all because of their setup. It's all because of those rotations. Animal leading them through, leading them the way with the Storm Scout not taking too much damage. You can see all their health in the bottom left. They're very healthy. And with the loadouts they have, just like you said, time to become activated as this half in, half out reveals itself to the rest of the server and players start to fly and use their launch pads. Remember, actually, we think about their mobility usage this game, they haven't used anything yet. And typically, you're going to see teams already using launch pads and the rest of the sort of shockwaves, even at this point in the game in fourth circle. Heck, even sometimes in third circle, they have to use it.
It seems like these guys were the only people in the server with a Storm Scout. Because half and half, as you said, with no mobility is just huge. Especially this early. Looks like we have a box fight here that just goes south for whoever that enemy was. No envy there from Bucky at all on his positioning. That guy just goes straight down. And Animal now taking over. They're getting an even more higher ground position. Completely central. Another care package coming down too. I am not sure how they, against 50 other players in this lobby, 18 other trios, got this position at all.
Clever rotations through, and now full rain, like you said. It's time. A couple of tags going through, and the most important thing that they're going to want to do here is try to focus the same target. Usually, the players who get the first couple of tags on somebody will call out left, back, right, which one they want to target, which one they want to focus, so that they can try to get an elim, a knock out of the sky.
Yep, and elims and knocks out of the sky are exactly pretty much a lot of what they need right now. The more the game goes on, the tighter those zones get, the worse that, or the more worse that infantry rifle kind of performs. You don't get to spam as much, which is what you need during that end game moment when there's a lot of people rotating over and over again. Interesting shockwave rotation here, straight to the next height. They've kind of seen exactly where the zone goes with the movement. Box fights coming in 3 angles once again, always pressuring so many different points at the same time. It's almost impossible for people to kind of keep or react to their ground. If they have their sights on you, it's their land to claim.
And that shockwave play so perfect to set up that pinch on 3 sides. And ahead of time too, because they still have that Storm Scout that they're using. They're already on the side of the zone that's moving closest to them. They're going to start getting RPG'd, but not before Bucky connects. That's why you have to find a critical point Nice shots coming through, and again, players flying through the sky. We'll see if they pick up anything. Animal picked up 2 elims before this. And we know they pick up a lot more.
That's exactly where the loadouts are insane. Emperor goes down. It's all about Bucky's aim right now. It's all about everyone being in cohesion, launching properly as well. The faster you guys launch as a team, the better it is for your landings. Animal on the call gets next height as well. This is 4 different height points in a row. Uncontested, barely even fought for, just perfect rotations. Now switching over to the combat, just because that infantry might be a little bit harder to land. The spray that's coming in from there will always be guaranteed 20 damage as long as you have good aim and hit your shots. These guys haven't given height up for multiple circles right now, Bella.
Yeah, and every time they just go a little bit ahead and then back up more. So just trying to claim their space throughout all these different heights, and it's, you know, paying off for a lot of eliminations right now. Animal up on high ground, Aspect and Bucky staying down 1 layer below them, even to give themselves a little bit more safety. I'm gonna switch over to Bucky's POV, who's down on low ground, or at least a little lower than where Animal's at. They're just getting so much damage just because of all the control they have. They're controlling like 3 layers to themselves.
I think I've counted 4 RPGs, 2 shockwaves hasn't been enough. They've literally just built a ramp 4 wall to counter each and every single one based on positioning. Now we see nades coming in. They nade their own tarp out, but once again, there's insurance on their own mistakes. Bucky's still has so much metal left himself as well. More nades coming down too. They're thinning down this lobby single-handedly as a star trio in it. I guarantee if it was anyone else on height, there'd be so many more people alive. But they're still making use of these long infantry rifle damage and peak pressure across the whole map. It's just, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
And it's not stopping. They're just going more and more at it. Shots on all sides of this zone. They're covering so much space that the rest of the teams can't do anything. Nice go down there by a player that Animal is on. But really, look, every time a player decides he has something, he has some movement, he has some options, they literally just completely wipe his lair out, and he has to move back to low ground. They forced the entire server to go down and play low from here.
Yep, and this is the effect. No one's even looking up at all. They already know how much of a menace that high ground trio is. Bucky's now able to just walk on other people's builds, not even looking for edits down. He gets to shoot down anyone now. It's multiple layered pressure from above and below. They control the mid ground. They control the high ground. They drop down to low ground, taking out every single trio. How are people still even alive? It literally looks like a public match game. A quick wrap up, easy victory royale. Dope splits there, Bola.
20 elims in the victory arrive, 7 for Bucky, 11 for Animal, and 2 for Aspect. And don't forget, they started all this with just 3, moving in towards that end game, moving in towards that half in, half out. So what a display there, and really calculated a slight shift in what we expect from Aspect, Animal, and Bucky. But hey, they do it, and they qualify for the Fortnite Champion Series. So we'll be seeing them in the finals, or at least in the group stages. That was awesome. Shyo, thank you so much for joining me on this VoD review. It was awesome having you. Final thoughts from you, man.
Hey, man, the lesson we can all learn from this VoD, do not give these guys control. If you see them on height, run.
Run. Hey, that's what I would do for sure. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the Battle Bus.